This is literally my third attempt at making this video, which is why I'm going to make sure this message gets out there. I want you to ask yourself a question today. What are you afraid to be out of fear that you will be condemned, reprimanded, or rejected by the world? What part of you are you suppressing? Are you hiding out of fear that you will be judged and ostracized? Is it how you talk, how you walk, how you dress, how you show up in the world, what you truly desire? What are you hiding from the world out of the fear of not fitting in? Because remember, a king and a queen sits inside of the palace. They're not outside trying to fit in with the mob. A lot of us want to fit in. A lot of us want to be understood when we're not meant to be understood. All we're meant to do is to simply accept who we are and love who we are without needing validation from anybody or anything. The funny thing about this is a lot of us are still operating from a childlike mind. What do I mean by that? Well, most of our limiting thoughts and beliefs were founded and rooted in our childhood experiences. We become who we are through our experiences. So let me explain. Most of us went through different situations as children. Relationships, friendships, betrayals. And based on those experiences, you create an idea in your mind about the world. It was shaping your perception. A lot of us look in the mirror and think just because we see an adult that automatically our beliefs and thoughts change. When in fact, if you don't change them, you will carry the same thoughts and beliefs that you had from childhood. So think about that. Are you running the show? Or is that wounded child that went through all of those negative experiences running the show? The kid that was rejected by everybody. So they started to feel like, oh, nobody likes me. Nobody supports me. I'm not good enough. I don't fit in. Or how about that child that got their heart broken in a relationship because they didn't know better? And neither did the other child because they were just children. But now you think that all men are no good because the 10-year-old you was hurt. Or because your high school sweetheart cheated on you with another girl. He was a teenager. So you're telling me that you're basing how you perceive men off of how you were treated by a teenage boy. You understand where I'm going? And to take it a step further, as children, many of us were raised on television. We were raised on radio stations telling us how we should act, how we should be, showing us on TV screens how we should show up in the world. And we believed it naturally. We were children. We thought that we knew everything, but we didn't know anything. So we grew up thinking that this is how I show up in the world. especially if you didn't have a good example at home, in which many of us didn't. Many of us came from broken homes, so there was no way that we could take advice from our parents. Look at how you're living. Now, children aren't stupid. At least for me, I understood there's no way I can take advice from my mother on relationships. There's no way that I could take advice from my mother on how to become rich. I mean, so many of us don't know better. And so we take advice from friends who are in toxic relationships, from siblings who aren't living in their truth, who aren't liberated, but yet they tell you how to dress, how to show up in the world. And from strangers on social media. You don't even know them, but you're taking advice from people who aren't living the life that you want to live. That's a no-no. The people that I take advice from are people who have already accomplished the things that I want to accomplish. The people that I take advice from are the people that are living the life that I want to live, who are already successful in the things that I want to be successful in. Many of us are struggling because we're taking advice from people who are nowhere on the level that we're trying to get to. And then you wonder why you're stuck in the same place. Because if you look, they're stuck in the same place. At the end of the day, the only thing that we should be doing is living our truth. No one else is supposed to validate how you live your life. We so easily give our power away by believing others are somehow smarter than us or know better than we do what we need. I went through a lot of experiences throughout life, and for a long time, everybody dictated how I lived my life, except me, how I perceived the world. My mother, friends, the church, social media. It's like everybody else knew better than me what I needed. Until I finally said, enough is enough. I'm not happy. And it wasn't until I truly started to follow my own inner compass and to dictate my own life based on what I felt was right and wrong. How I dress, how I speak is based on what I feel is right or wrong. That's how we take our power back from society, because there are so many biases in the world, especially put on us as women. We're told how we should dress, what is acceptable, what is wife material, what a mother should act like. We should work, we should not work. We should want to be taken care of, we should not want to be taken care of. When are you going to decide what you want? and realize that maybe not everybody is meant to live the same life. And that what you want is okay. And nobody else has to like it. Nobody else has to like it. You don't need me or anybody else to validate how you want to live your life. But we judge ourselves. And it's usually not based off of our own judgments. It's based off what we've been taught. That little voice that's subconsciously running all the time in the back of our mind, until we start to question, whose voice am I hearing? Is it my mother's voice projecting onto me her own childhood experiences, her own limiting belief, her own suppression of her feminine energy? Is it my friends who are not even happy in their lives and their relationships, who are nowhere near where they want to be in their careers? Everybody else gets to tell you what makes you happy. Doesn't quite add up. But so often is how we live our lives. Some of the same people that are judging you wish that they were brave enough, courageous enough to do the things that you're doing. You know how the saying goes, first they laugh, then they copy. It's so true. I've seen it happen in my own life many times. First they laugh, ridicule, ostracize you. And then slowly but surely you'll start to see them begin to imitate you. Because all it took was one person to show them that it's okay for you to go against the grain. That not all of us are controlled by a system that tells me how I'm supposed to show up in the world. As a woman, as a black girl, only you can box yourself in. We give our power away by thinking that somehow other people's opinions are more important than our own, when we are the only ones that will have to die with regrets. So you can live your whole life for everybody else, and none of those people will be next to you on your bedside. And even the ones who are, they can't die with you. You have to live with your decisions. You have to live with not taking chances based on the fear of being judged, based on the fear of not fitting in, based on the fear of not being understood. Like so many of us just want to be understood. So we try to fit in. A lot of times we dim our light because we feel like nobody will understand us. We have to become okay with not being understood and to sit comfortably in that, to sit pretty, regardless. A queen and a king is not worried about sitting on the throne by themselves. There's a reason there is only one throne. You are the king and queen of your life. Don't allow the mob to dictate how you show up in the world. For a long time, I struggled with being my authentic self because I was so afraid of being judged. So I hid myself. I showed the world only versions of myself that I wanted them to see. And I protected the other versions that I felt they wouldn't understand, thus abandoning those parts of me that wanted to be seen, that wanted to show up in the world boldly and as courageously as the other versions of myself that I felt would be more acceptable, more of the norm. But I came to realize that those voices in my head were coming from a child who didn't know better, who couldn't protect herself, who didn't know the difference. I listened to those voices and I showed compassion to her. But then I started to listen to a different voice, which was the voice of me, of my greatest potential. The voice that told me that I had every right to show up in the world authentically, and that I didn't have to care how other people perceived me. I didn't have to care about their opinions because most of them were just projections. Most of them were not even true. So what was I truly afraid of? Being rejected, being misunderstood, being cast out? Well, I will say, the journey of self-empowerment can be a lonely journey sometimes, because most of the world is giving their power away to loved ones, to the government, to their bosses, to their friends, to complete strangers, simply to fit in, yet and still their home miserable. They wish that they could be as courageous as you. They wish that they could live an authentic life and be comfortable in that and feel safe in that and be unbothered and not care about what other people think or say about them. They wish that they had your strength. So never change who you are to fit in. Never shrink yourself to fit into the box that society has created. A box which allows them to control you. You weren't meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out. And it's time to be okay with that. It's time to be okay with you, what you want, who you are. To show every side of yourself boldly. Just to share a quick story. There was a time in my life where I used to model. And for a long time, I started to experience a guilt and shame based off the women that were around me, once again, who were not in their feminine energy. But these women would project onto me. they would condemn me in their own little way, like passive aggressive type of stuff, right? Like, oh, your man lets you do that, and how can you do that? Don't you want to go to school and study something else? No, I don't want to fit into your society, is what I should have told them. But at that time, I was still stepping into my power. And so I allowed the things that they would say about what I was doing to affect me. I felt very unsupported by women. And mind you, this was only based off of few women who were supposedly close to me, who were my family and friends. But they talked the most ish, right? Meanwhile, they wished that they could be bold enough and confident enough to feel liberated enough within their bodies, within themselves, to put themselves out there that way. But I didn't know that, because people always see what we don't see until we change our perception of ourselves.